Today's case, we are going to Australia again. This
is Danielle Kirsty. Twisted woman manipulates husband.
Second case in a row from Australia, and the perpetrator from today's case is a woman called Bianca Edmonds. And I don't even have any words for this woman, because Bianca, she was somebody that liked to be in control, and she saw people as objects for her to use and abuse. And she got into a relationship with a man named Michael. They had a child together, but they broke up. And Bianca, she moved on to a different man. She actually got married to a different man. But was Bianca happy with this whole situation? No. No. Because Bianca had a massive vendetta against her ex. So Bianca, being the twisted woman that she wasn't going to carry out her revenge herself. Oh no, she was going to use her new husband to do it for her. And the way she manipulated her new husband, I just have no words. Because Bianca started using sex to brainwash her new husband. She would literally bring her new husband on the verge of climaxing, and she would start shouting at him, "Will you kill for me? Will you kill for me?" It's crazy. Like, she literally was using sex to brainwash her new husband. And she was so manipulative, she was so twisted, and all of her schemes would end up in two people losing their lives. Today's case is an insane series of events. So that is what we are talking about today, so let's jump in. And I just want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, and that is Love and Pies. And if you have never heard me talk about Love and Pies before, which I'm sure you probably...
She speaks fast. Which is an observation, not that I'm oblivious that I also do too sometimes. To be clear.
Edmonds was born on the 22nd of March 1986, making her an Aries. And she grew up in Melbourne, Australia, where she lived with her three siblings and her parents. Now, growing up, Bianca's childhood was pretty chaotic. Her dad was very absent. He was basically non-existent, but when he was around, there was just constant arguing and shouting, screaming between Bianca's parents. Her parents did get divorced when Bianca was 6 years old, and Bianca's biological father completely cut off the whole family. Like, Bianca actually didn't see her dad again for a very long time. Her mom then got remarried, and Bianca gained two older step siblings. But the chaos does not stop there, because another thing that was just very chaotic in Bianca's childhood was the fact that the family moved around constantly. They were just moving from one place to the next all around Melbourne, which meant that Bianca, she was constantly moving to a new school. She had to make new friends everywhere that she went, and this had a massive impact on her mental health. Her grades also started to become affected because she was just never settled. They just constantly moved around. But that was not the only thing that happened in Bianca's childhood, because when Bianca was no older than just 10 years old, this is when she became the victim of extreme physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her own brother. Now, Bianca's older brother has been described as, quote, a troubled child. He required quite a lot of significant care from Bianca's parents. Her brother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as well as schizophrenia, and he also had developmental problems. And he was a very troubled child, and he apparently had violent sexual tendencies. And because of these violent sexual tendencies, he started abusing his younger sister, Bianca. And it is just so horrific. She is so young. She's still in primary school when this is happening. And it absolutely tore her apart. She was so confused because she knew what was happening to her was wrong, but then she had been brought up to trust her older brother. And she was really confused because why would her older brother hurt her like this? But she became incredibly fearful of her brother. She was just constantly terrified whenever he was around. And this was happening behind closed doors. Nobody knew about it. Bianca never told anybody. However, one day she did break down and she confessed everything to her mom. So this should be the part where I tell you something is done about it and the sexual abuse stops. But what happened when she told her mom? Absolutely nothing. Her mom basically just tried to sweep the whole thing under the rug. She didn't want to know. She completely dismissed Bianca. She actually accused her of making the whole thing up. And Bianca's mom just went back to catering to her brother's every need, as if nothing had happened and all of this was normal. The brother was essentially the golden child. He could do no wrong, and that is clear because he is sexually and physically abusing his sister and nobody cares. Nobody wants to do anything about it. And this left...
This is Danielle Kirsty. Twisted woman manipulates husband.
Bianca completely unprotected by even her mom. And I don't know this for sure, but because nothing was done about the physical and sexual abuse, I think it's safe to assume that it possibly did continue. And things go on like this in Bianca's life until she's in high school. Her life is still completely chaotic. The family are still moving around. Bianca ends up attending at least 5 different high schools. So the fact that she's moving around, never feeling settled, the fact that she's still possibly being abused by her older brother, the fact that she has no one to turn to, no one to protect her mental health really suffered and she had severe anxiety. But not only that, just to top everything off, she also had a lot of issues with her physical health. She was diagnosed with arthritis from a very young age. She suffered with carpal tunnel, which caused her immense pain. She had to have surgery on both of her feet for a separate issue. It's like she can't catch a break. She is going through so much and pretty much no one cares. She was also later diagnosed with a self-defeating personality due to the sexual abuse that she had suffered as a child. She had massive trust issues, which I think we could all understand because she's had absolutely no one to turn to growing up. And she viewed the world in a kill or be killed kind of way. She saw everyone as her enemy. She always thought that she could never show anyone her weaknesses because they would use it against her. And she started to think that the only reason why she should have people in her life was for her to use them. That is all people were good for. Use them, get what you can out of them, control everything, and then dump them. And those personality traits will become very clear throughout the rest of this case. Eventually, Bianca does drop out of high school early. She actually ends up joining the Navy, where she spends a couple of years in the Navy before she is medically discharged. And then at the age of 19, she just bounces from one job to another. She worked for a mining company in retail as a dental nurse, as a receptionist. She also goes from one relationship to another, just constantly bouncing from one man to the next. She literally did have a new boyfriend every single week. And her life is still very chaotic. She's either changing relationships constantly or changing jobs constantly, and it is very reflective of her upbringing. And it was around this time that a significant thing happens in Bianca's life, because the current man that she's dating is a man named Dirk, and she falls pregnant for the very first time. She does go on to have a child. She has a little boy that she names Tyler. And surprisingly, things are actually pretty settled from this moment on for a few years. So we do skip forward. It is now 2012. Bianca is 26 years old and she's left her former relationship, the one with Dirk, and she meets a new man by the name of Michael Capiciana. And this is very, very significant. Michael is very significant to the rest of today's case. Now, Michael was 35 years old when he met Bianca, so he is 9 years her senior. And we actually don't know much about Michael's background. I couldn't find anything when I was doing my research. The only thing that I could find is that he was involved in quite a serious car accident. This was when he was younger and he did receive compensation, which he used to buy his own house. So when Michael and Bianca first met, they hit it off straight away. They started spending loads of time together pretty much instantly, and it wasn't long until Bianca and her son Tyler ended up moving in with Michael. And things moved very, very quickly, because within 6 months of dating, Bianca falls pregnant with Michael's child. Michael then proposed to Bianca and they were due to be married. They started planning the wedding, and then it wasn't long until the relationship turned very toxic. We don't exactly know what happened in the relationship. We don't know why the relationship turned so toxic. Maybe it was just tensions between the two of them because Bianca was pregnant and all of that and the stress and the change and everything. But we also know that Bianca's a very evil person, so Yeah, we just don't know what happened, but it has been said that the relationship, quote, included elements of family violence. And again, we don't know anything more than that. And we don't know who the violence was coming from and who it was directed towards. But what we do know is that the relationship did not last much longer, because the day before their engagement party, which should be a time of celebration, they were supposed to be celebrating with friends and family, they broke up the day before their engagement party. And obviously Bianca is still pregnant, but the two of them just decided that they could no longer be together. Things were just not working, and it was just best that they split up. Bianca moves out, she goes back to living on her own, and Michael moves on. He actually gets himself a new girlfriend by the name of Silvana. And I don't know about any of you, but yes, the relationship was toxic, but the way it ended was pretty mature. They both decided that they couldn't be together, that it was best for everybody that they just broke up. They saw that their relationship was toxic and it ended. So I just want to put that out there. So we skip forward now to June of 2013. This is when Bianca goes on to give birth to Michael's child, who is another boy that she calls Luca. And this is where the problems start, because now there is a massive custody battle. Because Michael applied to the courts for him to have visitation to his own son, but Bianca was having none of it. She was blocking him left, right, and center. She wouldn't allow Michael visitation, and we don't know why.
Listen, have you ever seen someone who's just kind of coasting along, just...
I am cold. Oh, you know why? Yeah, it's because I just ate a bunch of frozen grapes. Hello. Lowered my core body temperature.
Very significant thing happens to Bianca because she meets a new man, and this man is very, very significant. He plays a major role in the rest of today's case, and this man is a man named Glenn Cassidy. Now, Glenn was 48 years old when he met Bianca. He was actually 19 years her senior, so there is quite a big age gap here. And Glenn had been previously married. He'd actually been married for the last 20 years. He had only recently gotten divorced from his wife at the end of 2014, so a matter of months before he met Bianca. And he also had 3 daughters from his previous marriage. And there is one thing that you should know about Glenn. He was described as someone that was quite vulnerable, very naive, and he was easily manipulated. Not that that is an excuse for what he goes on to do, just want to put it out there, but yes, he is somebody that Bianca would love to target, because as soon as she got into a relationship with Glenn, she did what she always did with people. She saw him as an object. She saw that she could use him to get revenge on her ex. And why does she want revenge on her ex, Michael? Well, it's because he was trying to get visitation to his son, and she didn't want that. She didn't want Michael to see his son. She couldn't be bothered with the whole process. It was taking up too much of her time, and she just wanted Michael out of the picture. So she saw that she could use Glenn to get revenge on Michael. So Bianca is now in a relationship with Glenn, and like all of her relationships, the relationship moves very quickly. And pretty much from the get-go, she started talking to Glenn about how evil Michael was. She was already planting the seeds. She kept saying to Glenn that Michael was an unfit father, that he was a violent man, that he was going to have a bad influence on her son's life. And Bianca was also saying all of this to everyone in her life, all of her friends, all of her family. Whenever she got the chance to run Michael's name down, she did. But this is also when Bianca started making up a ton of lies about Michael. She started to say that Michael was going to kidnap her son Luca, leave Australia and go on the run, and she would never see her son again. Now, I don't know why she thought that. She had zero evidence that Michael was going to do that. It did seem like she was just making it up for dramatic effect, to get people to feel sorry for her and to manipulate people. You can't always trust everything that Bianca says. So when she was saying all of this to Glenn, that she was saying that Michael was going to kidnap her son Luca, that he would leave Australia, that she would never see her son again, as we know, Glenn is very naive, very gullible. He was lapping all of this up. There was not one question in his mind. He did not question Bianca at all. He never once stopped to think, this all seems a bit far-fetched. Is this true? None of that. He was just like, oh my god, Michael sounds like an evil person. Straight away, Glenn was on board of needing to stop Michael right away. And she just kept getting more and more outlandish with her stories that she was saying to Glenn. She was now saying that Michael was a genuine threat to Bianca and Glenn's life. She started saying that Michael was planning on killing both of them. Again, she had no evidence of this. She pretty much didn't have any contact with Michael at all. So I really don't know how Glenn believed all of this. But she was saying that Michael would break into their home in the middle of the night and murder them in their sleep. And I don't even know if Glenn had ever met Michael in person at this point. But he just never questioned anything. He always believed Bianca, which is just crazy to me, especially because he's only just met Bianca. He's only known her for a matter of months and he is trusting every single word that she is saying. It's insane. I just don't know. I understand that he's gullible and naive, but seriously, how does anybody believe this? So we now get to August of 2015, which is only 6 months after Bianca and Glenn met. And what happens next? Well, Michael is finally granted visitation to his son, Luca. And as you can imagine, Bianca was outraged. This was the last thing that she wanted. She was horrified that all of her efforts to block him from having visitation had failed. She hated that Michael was now going to see his son 2 years after he was born, which is crazy. She kept him away from his son for 2 years. So Michael was
I was just thinking actually earlier, now I know why they wanted me to pick this story. I was like, you really want me to pick this one? Out of all the cases I could pick, manipulates husband with sex by not letting him orgasm, but I get it now because the part that's a parallel is the parental alienation.
Granted supervised visits every other week for 2 hours. Bianca and Michael would have to meet at a neutral location so Michael could then see his son Luca. And Michael was kind of happy with this arrangement. I mean, at least he would finally get to see his son. But Bianca was not happy. No. Again, at every opportunity that she had to run Michael's name down, she would. She would say to all of her friends, family, Glenn, that Michael was evil, he was violent, he didn't deserve visitation.
In fact, I was picking up today something about hostage situations ending and custodial interference being dissolved. Something like that, where kids coming home because the lies didn't stick. And the people who lied actually are, a lot of them, in trouble for doing so. But that's why they slandered, and that's why they continued to slander, to try to get control over the narrative again, because they've lost it. You can't hold people hostage.
That he was a waste of space. She also moaned about how far away Michael lived. Because Michael lived approximately 4 hours away from Bianca, and because they had to meet at a neutral location that was kind of in the middle, Bianca would have to travel 2, sometimes 2.5 hours to this neutral location, and she was not happy about that. It was interfering with her lifestyle. And these visits every other week only went on for a few short months before Bianca had had enough. She was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. That's it. I'm not taking my son to see Michael anymore. I need to do something. And this is now where this case takes a sickening, deadly turn. So after the few short months of these visitations, Bianca started telling everybody that she wished that Michael was dead. And obviously people thought that this was just tongue-in-cheek. Bianca was just having a moan about her ex. She didn't actually mean it. I mean, people say things about their exes all the time that they don't mean. But behind closed doors, Bianca was saying to Glenn that she really did want Michael dead. Now, we don't know Glenn's reaction to this, but we know that he laps up everything that Bianca is saying. So Who knows? Maybe at first he did think that she was joking. Or maybe he took her seriously from the get-go. But Bianca kept saying to Glenn over and over again that Michael was a threat, that Michael was going to take her son away from her. And this is when Bianca told Glenn that he needed to be a man and step up and do something about it. And now Bianca was getting really angry at Glenn. She was now verbally abusing Glenn. She would scream and shout at him. She would say to him that if he was a real man, he would take care of it. If he cared about her, he would take care of it. If he loved her, he should do something about it. She called him spineless, weak. She would say that he had no balls. And this was all because Bianca was trying to convince Glenn to murder Michael for her. That's what she wanted. That is what she wanted Glenn to be a man about. If he cared about her so much, he should just go and murder Michael to protect Bianca. And things go on like this for weeks. Bianca verbally abusing Glenn, basically bullying him into murdering Michael. But Glenn, he wasn't having any of it. He kept refusing.
You know who she reminds me of? Not the narrator, the Bianca girl. Of the mean, snotty, spoiled girl in Willy Wonka. You know, you know. I think maybe the blueberry one. There were two really, the goose girl and then the blueberry one.
Fusing. So Bianca now turns to different manipulation tactics. First of all, she told Glenn that she wanted to get married. So the pair got engaged and they started planning their wedding for the following year. Bianca then said that she wanted to have a child with Glenn, even though I don't know if she did. Like, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I think it was just manipulation, but Bianca made out to Glenn that she wanted a child with him.
Right.
So Bianca and Glenn, they start having a lot of sex, probably to try and conceive. But the real reason that Bianca and Glenn were having so much sex is because Bianca was actually using sex to brainwash Glenn.
That was funny.
Yeah. It is insane what she actually does. She was trying to brainwash Glenn into murdering Michael during their sexual activity. Because every single time Bianca had sex, just as Glenn was on the verge of climaxing, Bianca would whisper in his ear, "Will you kill Michael for me?" And Bianca did this every single time. It was like she was trying to associate Glenn's pleasure with murdering Michael. And after doing this tactic for a while, Bianca took it one step further, because she then started to refuse to let Glenn orgasm until he verbally agreed to murder Michael. Have you ever heard of something so messed up? It's insane. Like, literally, as Glenn was about to climax, Bianca would stop, not let him climax, shout at him, "Will you murder Michael for me? Will you murder Michael for me?" And she would only carry on and let him climax if he said, yes, I'll do it. So that is now what was happening. Every time they had sex, Bianca would stop as Glenn was about to orgasm. She would say, "Will you murder Michael for me?" And Glenn always said yes.
That seems
because
like it would turn
he wanted to orgasm. But he was being brainwashed. It's just crazy. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no. There is more sexual activity and more brainwashing that goes with it. Because Bianca now starts bringing a gun into the bedroom when they have sex. She would hold the gun. She would climb on top of Glenn. She would, quote, ride him whilst having the gun in her hand. Bianca then started saying, quote, "You're the effing man here. Now, it has to be now. If you don't man up and go to his house and shoot him dead, then you're a pussy and you don't love me and I will leave you." Bianca would then tie Glenn up and she would, quote, play all sorts of kinky sex games whilst holding the gun. And apparently this started to turn Glenn on. And again, Glenn is associating guns and violence and murder with his pleasure. And things progressed from there. Bianca then asked Glenn to tie her up and she asked Glenn to hold the gun and she wanted Glenn to, quote, rough her up and have sex with her whilst pointing the gun at her. And she would say, "Tell me how much you want to kill him. Will you do it? I won't let you come until you say yes." And Bianca would also say that it turned her on so much when Glenn had sex with her whilst he was holding a gun. So Glenn started getting off on this. He started to revel in the fact that she was getting so much pleasure from him holding the gun. And it was just all so messed up, all of this. Bianca is trying her hardest to sexually brainwash Glenn. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it was working. Glenn was now actively getting aroused every single time Bianca talked about murdering Michael. He would actually want to have sex when the topic of Michael being murdered was brought up. I just can't believe it worked. After Bianca was playing all of these twisted mind games using sex to brainwash Michael, she had finally gotten what she wanted. Because Glenn, for real now, agreed to murder Michael, which I'm just speechless. I'm flabbergasted. What the actual hell? I can't believe that the murder-fueled sexual brainwashing actually worked. So we now get to December 2015. Glenn and Bianca had been together for about a year at this point. Michael had only had visitation to his son for approximately 4 months. All of this is happening incredibly quickly because this is when Bianca and Glenn make a fully fledged plan on how they were going to murder Michael. And Bianca was obviously the main driving force here. She was the one leading everything, but Glenn was still going along with it. And a big part of the plan is that Glenn had to carry out the murder of Michael completely on his own. Because if Bianca was involved, she would get caught because she is too close to Michael. And if Michael gets murdered, the police are going to look at her first. So she cannot participate in the murder, which makes no sense. It really doesn't. Because if Michael is murdered, yes, they are going to look at his ex, for example, Bianca, especially if there is animosity between the two of them. But then the police will quickly look at Bianca's new partner as also a suspect. So that just doesn't make sense. But Glenn seemed to agree, even though Bianca is literally just trying to cover her own back. She does not care about Glenn whatsoever. But Glenn started making the plan on how he was going to murder Michael alone. Bianca did help with some of the planning though. She is definitely the brains. And together they made a detailed map of Michael's home. Glenn also made a to-do list on the Notes app on his phone of all of the things that he needed to do leading up to the murder and the murder. And you can actually see images of the list online. And as you can see from the list, it's actually pretty difficult to understand because it's full of spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. It's not always clear what Glenn means. He first puts the heading obstacles, to which he writes 1 bullet, getting him alone, body, transport. He then puts another heading, things I want to do before the job. And in this section he writes, financial for Bianca and kids, have baby or at least be pregnant, get married, have as much sex as possible.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it.
That's crazy. Crazy.
One of the things that he wrote down on his Notes app was have as much sex as possible. In the grand scheme of things, you're writing a list about murder and that is what you write down? Wow. And I should say, as Glenn was making this list, he and Bianca were trying to get pregnant. Apparently Bianca was receiving IVF treatment. How true that is, we don't know, because Bianca is a liar and she will say whatever she needs to get Glenn on her side. So I don't know if this is true, but I can imagine she was possibly lying to Glenn about getting pregnant, possibly about IVF treatment, just to manipulate him. But again, I don't have any evidence of that, but that makes sense in my mind. So after Glenn has made this list on his Notes app, he starts putting some serious plans in motion about how he was going to murder Michael. And the first thing that he does is he wants to scope out the place. He wants to know everything about Michael's home, the comings and goings, the layout, etc. So Glenn starts to drive to Michael's home on several different occasions. And he basically just sits there outside of the house watching. And bear in mind, Michael lived over 100 miles away. It was approximately a 4-hour round trip. So it's not like it's just down the road. Michael was really committing to this. And whilst Glenn was sat outside Michael's home, scoping out the place and basically being a stalker, he would call Bianca and give her updates. And he would tell Bianca about the job. Because Bianca and Glenn, they always referred to the plan to murder Michael as the job. However, completely unknown to Glenn and Bianca, Glenn had accidentally installed an app that recorded every single phone call. I didn't even know apps like that existed, but Glenn apparently accidentally installed one. So every single phone call that Glenn makes, it gets recorded. So whilst he is sat there outside of Michael's house, scoping out the place, making his little phone calls to Bianca about the job, Everything is being recorded. And of course, these phone calls would later be recovered as evidence. But Glenn and Bianca are making all of these incriminating phone calls, and they have no idea. And I just love it when that happens. Don't you just love it? And you can actually hear some of the snippets of these phone calls online, which I will play for you now.
Oh, I'll just get it done then. That way we don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just one night.
Hey?
Just go to work. That way it's over and done with, and we don't have any more nights like this.
Yeah.
It's getting to everyone, I think.
Yeah, it is. I am completely over this job. It's got to be...
Well, just finish it.
I'm trying.
And then concentrate on the next, you can concentrate.
Yeah.
Finish this job and move on.
I can't stand her.
Let the future be better. We need less stress in our lives.
And in the phone calls, both of them are trying to be very inconspicuous. They always refer to the plan to murder Michael as the job, just in case, anyone was listening. It's like they're trying to speak in code, but they're not being very clever about it. They just keep saying the job or work, and they're basically just talking about their assassination plot. But the phone calls actually give a really good insight to the power imbalance between the two of them. You can tell that Bianca is definitely in charge, but she also sounds very cold towards Glenn.
Hi, Stu. I want to celebrate. I bought you a present.
I want to celebrate too. Freaking trust me. Yeah.
Go on.
Trust me, Cindy, I'll try my hardest, you know that. Yeah. So there's no work obligations down here. Should go. Trust me, it's,
Just don't get all funny after the job.
no,
And don't hurt yourself.
no, that won't.
I mean, I know it's a pretty mental job that you're doing, but physically and mentally and all that, don't hurt yourself.
The fuck?
And something that I couldn't help but
He's
notice
so
is
desperate
that
too.
Glenn
He's trying to
says, I
please her
love
so
you
much.
so many times to Bianca, but she, point blank, refuses to say it back.
No, I've never loved someone like that. When I'm away from you, I hurt.
Hmm?
I bet you look beautiful.
Hello.
I bet you look beautiful.
See, bye.
I love you.
Enjoy your job.
Yeah, I love you.
Concentrate.
I love you.
Concentrate. Don't stop up. Pay attention.
Ugh.
Yeah, I will. I love you. Okay. See you later.
It's so awkward
It's
and
like
uncomfortable
sad.
to
Ugh.
listen to because she just says, okay,
Sad.
or I know.
It's
And there's
so
also one
cringe.
time that Bianca, right there and then on that phone call, tries to convince Glenn to commit the murder right there and then because Glenn asks if he and Bianca can, quote, have sex tomorrow night. To which Bianca responds, I don't know, it depends if we're celebrating or not. Enjoy your job. Basically insinuating that Glenn will get sex if he murders Michael, and if he doesn't murder Michael, well then they're not celebrating, so sex is off the table.
Yeah, no worries. Think we have sex tomorrow night?
Fuck.
I don't know. It depends if we're celebrating or not.
No.
But nothing happens on that particular occasion. Glenn doesn't murder Michael, so I assume he probably didn't get sex when he got home. And in February of 2016, in the middle of all of this planning,
Whack.
Glenn and Bianca get married. Yeah, in the middle of all of this, they actually do officially get married. But also around this time, Bianca apparently fell pregnant. And I say apparently because, again, there is actually no evidence that she did fall pregnant and it wasn't just another manipulation tactic of Glenn, but who knows, maybe she was pregnant. But what we do know is that she made Glenn believe that she was pregnant, but then she lost the baby, which, again, I hate to say that anyone is lying about a miscarriage, but it just seems very convenient because then she blamed the loss of the baby on all of the stress with Michael, and she just needed Michael gone. And of course she said this to Glenn, and Glenn got really angry because Michael is now the reason as to why Bianca has had a miscarriage, which is why I think it possibly was a lie. And this is actually what seemed to push Glenn over the edge. He was furious at Michael. Not only was Michael a danger to Bianca, to Glenn himself, Michael was also a danger to Luca, the child in all of this.
I'm going to cap it right there for now, my darlings. Thank you so much. You're welcome for being here. I have some other things coming, but I need to get some rest for now. And I bid you adieu. Yeah, get some rest. Do no harm. Take no crap. Remember to stay hydrated. Nourish yourselves. And I'll catch you on the next one. Namaste. Blessings. One love.